one of my favorite podcasts, Wrestling's Road Trip After Hours, with WWE Hall of Famer Teddy Long and host MadMacDavis. Wrestling chat, interviews, and fun. Drops every week on YouTube and wherever you download your favorite podcasts. Holla, holla, holla.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome to an all-new episode of Road Trip After Hours. I'm your host, MacDavis, along with my WWE Hall of Famer co-host, Mr. Teddy Long. Hey, Teddy, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing good, Mac. Just happy to be ready to do another great After Hours road trip. How about that? That may be backwards, but that still tells what it is.
Well, that's you, Teddy. You're usually backwards anyhow.
Well, yeah. What can I say? Yeah, man, this week we really got a real special guest, somebody that's certainly important, a young man that I had the opportunity of working with in WCW and some other places, but what a hell of a guy. I mean, Such a nice guy, man, I'm telling you. So we ain't going to keep on just talking about it. We ain't keeping people in suspense. Let's go ahead and let everybody know we got my man here with us today. We got the original OG, Ray Lloyd Glacier, ladies and gentlemen. We got him in the building.
Hey, thank you guys once again. Thank you for having me on, man. It's always a pleasure. It really is.
Hey, absolutely. Look, I feel like I owe you a lot anyhow, because we've known each other, I believe, Ray, since 97, maybe.
Around
I can't remember
there,
what year, right around the time that we were doing some events together. And so it's been a long time, and you've always been gracious at doing interviews when I've asked you about things when I was first starting. As a matter of fact, here's a little thing I just realized today. When I first got back into the wrestling kind of genre and doing what I'm doing now, a podcast, I came in to do interviews, and the first two interviews I did were with two people that I was comfortable enough to try it with, see if I can get my feet back underneath me. And that was you and Teddy Long. The two guys here right now are the two guys I went to for that help. So I feel like I owe you the world, Ray, and I do appreciate it. And Teddy's not wrong when he says he's one of the nicest guys in the world. He truly is. He's like Sting. You don't hear a bad thing about Ray anywhere. So
I hope not. but yeah,
how did the whole?
I want to jump in here, and I want to say this, Mac. I also heard you say that you owe Ray and everything, and I didn't hear you say anything about you owing me. I mean, do you plan on paying me, or are you just planning on just
now look here, you know already how much I feel about you, Teddy, so no, you ain't gonna worry about that. Ray, how did the Glacier gimmick come to be for you? Where'd you first get the inkling that somebody wants you to come in and portray that role?
Well, it's funny, here we are in April 2024, and I actually broke in April of 1987, so this month makes my 37th year, which is really, if my math is correct. So I'm not good at math. Hopefully it is, but no,
you're
I broke
a teacher,
in.
You better be.
Yeah, exactly. So I got no excuse, but I broke in, in April of '87, and I finished up college at Valdosta, Georgia, and I was fortunate enough to, back then, of course, it was it was for you really, there weren't a lot of wrestling schools. You had to kind of get invited into the business, so to speak, or kind of brought into the business. And I was very fortunate that, that happened back then. And, as I pursued wrestling, I just knew that, like I tell, just about every aspiring wrestler who will listen, a lot of times, whether it's wrestling or whatever, but especially wrestling, sometimes you got to go where the opportunity is. And Valdosta was a great place for me to go to college, and it was a great place for me to start teaching school. And it was a great place to break in because the indie scene in Georgia was certainly really strong back then. But I knew if I was going to have a chance to go to the next level, I needed to go to where the opportunity was, which was Atlanta for me, because my goal was World Championship Wrestling to get there, and moved to Atlanta in 1990. Was fortunate to get a teaching job right there in Marietta, Georgia. Got me a nice little apartment, what I could afford on my teacher salary, and I was smart enough to go right down and join Lex and Sting's gym, Main Event Fitness, and of course by then I was starting to know a lot of the guys on the independent scene, and through some of those guys I met Diamond Dallas Page, and we became friends, and of course Dallas's work ethic is legendary, and of course I got to see it firsthand back then, and I can say very humbly and proud that I have a pretty decent work ethic myself, and Dallas saw that, and so we started kind of looking at what might be an opportunity to present to WCW, specifically Eric Bischoff, and there were a couple ideas that we were pitched that were kind of like received kind of lukewarm, but nothing really really hit, and then eventually. Dallas and I were Christmas shopping, December of '95. I'll never forget. And I mentioned, we were sitting down to eat lunch, and I said, Dallas, I'm thinking about incorporating some of this martial arts stuff into my wrestling, in the ring. And he was just like, I'll never forget. He has a mouthful of pizza. You can imagine with Dallas, and he goes, bro, that'd be great if you knew some of that stuff. And I was like, of course, he didn't say stuff. If you know Dallas, we know. And so, and I said, bro, what are you talking about? And I realized at that point I'd never really talked about it that much to Dallas or really anybody, because it's just one of those things that I did that on the side. I didn't really think to bring it into wrestling. And he basically said, hey, Bischoff's into all that stuff too. And that was kind of my hook with Bischoff. That drew enough interest from him. And we got through the holidays. Dallas scheduled a little dinner for me and Eric to meet up at this little restaurant outside their neighborhood there, and I went and met, and I can say at that time I knew I was ready. I really knew I was ready. My first 2 or 3 years, I definitely could not say that. But at that time I was ready, and I had a great conversation with Eric. It went about, as I remember, about 3 hours. It was a really long dinner conversation, and I kept figuring, well, if it's going longer, that's a good thing, not a bad thing. And
True.
And so anyway, fast track through that is, basically the idea was really formed right then, and then it kind of grew from there. Eric I never expected, but he actually offered me, basically a contract right then and there, not knowing really where we're going to go with this or anything. Yeah. And I remember him saying, because I was actually fitness director of the Atlanta Athletic Club, really prestigious country club in Atlanta, and so I had a good job. I was the India wrestling was going great for me, but I had a good job. And I remember him saying, like, I'm not even going to ask you to quit your job right now. He said, what I want you to do is just disappear from the independent wrestling scene. And I looked right at him and I said, I can do that. Yeah. And so that's how
your first entrance coming out, because you had a lot of buildup for the Glacier character. I mean, in fact, I can't recall anybody that had that kind of buildup prior to Glacier. So there was a lot of pressure on you to come out and perform and meet those expectations of the fans. Your first entrance out in the arena with the fans, what was that like?
Well, I can tell you this. I mean, I'll be the first to say, and granted, you have to remember too, as I always say, hindsight's 20/20. During this time, this was the first time anything of this kind of magnitude had ever been done. It was the first time they really hired a special effects company to design really the whole persona and the gimmick from drawing board to finished product. So it was the first time for a lot of things. And yes, there was a lot of pressure. And that's what I meant earlier is I was ready. Thank God I was ready, because being ready gave me the confidence to dive into this. But yeah, I mean, it was, the build up to the debut. Yeah, obviously you look back now and we all realized it took a little too long to do that. Even I was ready for it to be over. I was ready to get out there. And so, but I remember, when Eric sat me down, he said, I'm bringing in Ray Traylor and, Big Boss Man. He just had a tremendous run in WWF at the time. And he was coming to WCW and he said, he's going to be your first match on Nitro and my debut match on Nitro. So if there wasn't enough pressure, and I remember, I do remember, and I've talked about this before, that you're going against someone like Ray, who was just ultimate professional, great guy, big guy who could move. I couldn't have asked for someone to a better opponent to have that first match with. And I remember, I mean, I was trying to stay calm, but I remember walking outside a couple of times, and I literally, and I don't think I've ever been someone who did this, but that night I did. I had literally dry heave. Like I
Yeah.
literally was so nervous that I couldn't throw up. You know, I thought I got it. And so eventually, you know, I kept just going in, drinking water, got the cotton mouth. And eventually, you know, the time came, we went out there. The match went great. And from that point on, I was off and running. But I owe a huge thank you to Ray Traylor, to Eric for booking that match, and for Ray Traylor to be the guy that I had that debut match with, because, you know, a true professional from top to bottom. And he just, he gave me a very good debut moment and a great memory that I still have to this day. And we became really good friends out of that. And that's probably the best thing that came from it.
And, you know, becoming friends in the back with a lot of these guys is kind of what prompted what we're going to talk about, because we could talk about Glacier and the debut and everything for a long time. But I do want to focus on this new movie. It's a brand new movie coming out. It actually drops this week. As you're watching this, it has already, now I say dropped, it's in movie theaters. Let me get that straight. It's in movie theaters on this coming Friday. But Ray, meeting all these guys, becoming friends, is that how this movie got put together? Was it just a bunch of guys sitting around going, you know, I got a funny idea, and you just kind of all peeled off of one another and made something?
Yeah, and you know, and I know that it's funny as you were saying that, I was just thinking about, you know, the relationship I've had with Teddy all these years. You know, Teddy and I met early in my career, and it's the same thing. Like the first time we met, you know, it's, you know, I feel good people, you know, find good people. I really believe that. And in wrestling, you know, you tend to hear, like in any, you know, business that's in the public eye, you tend to hear the dark side stories, you hear the controversial stories. But what doesn't really get talked about near as much is, you know, the good people that are in professional wrestling, which in my opinion is the overwhelming majority of the people in the business. You know, and there are a lot of good people, good solid people. And I was very fortunate to be surrounded by a lot of those good people. And, you know, and Luther and I, we set out to make this movie our first, when we wanted to put the bones of the story together.
Now,
we
Luther
knew that
being
was going to be
Luther, Luther Biggs is who you're speaking of.
Luther Biggs. It was Steve Luther Wilson, who was one of my best friends. He's like family. We met at the power plant, the WCW power plant in '96. He went through a 3-day tryout. Yeah.
Ray, let me ask you something before you continue about the power plant. Now, you went through there. I had the pleasure, and I know Sarge watches this every week. So, Sarge, I'm going to say something, and you're going to laugh when I say it. We came down there as the radio station that I was working for at the time. We actually had a contestant who won the right to go through the power plant. And we brought him up there, and we did our morning show live from there, and we stayed there during the day to watch the power plant and how it works. That was one of the most brutal things I have ever seen in my life. And the next day, the majority of the people that were there on the first day disappeared on day number 2. You didn't see many of them left anymore. So, I mean, that was a difficult time. So you really, if you're coming through that class, you're making a lot of friends and making good friends because you're all going through hell together.
Right. And you know, it was, you know, and obviously, you know, the WCW power plant has been assessed and sometimes criticized for the way things were done back then. You know, but it was what it was. That was, and it was still, you know, that mentality. You know, you had Jody Hamilton, who was, you know, let's face it, one of the most legendary tough guys in the wrestling business. You know, the Masked Assassin. You know, who was the head of the power plant, and Sarge was, you know, basically the head trainer and coach there, and Pistol Pez Watley. I mean, guys who were, you know, guys who had made great names and great marks in this business as far as, you know, their careers. And they, you know, they took this business serious. They protected it in the sense of, you know, and if you go and watch any of the documentaries where they talk about it, like the one thing you have to have, and it certainly was back then, and I feel like it is today. If you're going to pursue this business, I mean, you have to have it. You have to have the heart to do it, because it is a tough, hard business. And, you know, and so that was basically a 3-day test to find out, like, did you really want to pursue this?
Yes.
And Luther, it's just one of the things that I really credited. I mean, Luther went at the time, he was 300 pounds, but he was a very athletic 300 pounds. He'd come off of, he played college football. He was actually, was coaching, you know, a Canadian football team at that time as a young coach. And he has a great story that we can come back and tell later. You know, back then the cutoff was 30 years old, and you couldn't try out if you were, you know, 30 years old or older. And Luther was 29, and he was like, yeah, I got to go now, or it'll never happen.
Yeah.
And he went through that 3-day tryout. He was one of the very few it's about a 85% dropout rate, and he made it through that tryout. And he'll say to this day that it proved to him how hard he could be pushed and still keep going. And so it is a badge of honor that he wears very proudly.
I'm sure. So now all you guys get together, and first of all, the name of the movie is The Unbreakable Bunch. Tell us about the guys we'll see in this film. And before you do that, let me set this up. This movie, if you haven't heard a single thing about it by now, and you had to have, because it's all over social media, but this movie is basically pro wrestlers versus aliens in a small town. And the only people, of course, who can save us from the attack of these aliens are the wrestlers. Who are the guys in the movie, Ray?
Yeah, and let me just say, I'll set the tone a little bit more for the listeners as far as what the story is. So the story is basically there's two parallel stories that the viewer sees from the very beginning, and the one is obviously that this group of veteran wrestlers come together for this one final tour for a good cause, and my character Jock Holliday goes to recruit each one of them, kind of like in the Magnificent Seven or the Expendables or movies like that with ensemble cast. So the viewer sees that story, but also the story the viewer sees is a story of this alien presence that has started to slowly take over this small Florida town. And so the story jumps back and forth as the viewer sees, but eventually, and we're on tour and we have this one day off and we're circling back through Florida and we stop off in this small town that's having this big festival that's going on. And that's where the two worlds collide, and then the chaos ensues from there.
Who's all in this movie? Because I know you got a lot of names. So it's not just you. So you also got Ernest the Cat Miller. I know he's in there. Yeah. Stan Hansen makes an appearance. Yeah. DDP makes an appearance. Who am I missing here?
There's so many. I had to put a list together.
I bet.
But yeah, I'll just start with the obvious one. Tonga Fafita, which the world knows as Haku or Ming, like he was referred to in WCW with us, and. I know you will be posting the online poster there. If you look on the poster, he's right in the middle of the poster for good reason. Yeah. I mean, he's the baddest cat in the jungle, And
that's no lie.
But he's also, he's anybody that knows him, and Teddy can attest to this as well, is, he's the kindest, most humble, family-oriented man you will ever meet. But yes, he still is that guy. And we get to show in this movie both sides of that, which I think is really, really good because, as I mentioned earlier, we want to make a movie that celebrated everything that's really great about professional wrestling. And we want a movie that people who love wrestling the way we do can sit down and watch it and really enjoy it and feel good about loving professional wrestling. And we just didn't see any movies that were really out there that painted wrestling in a really good light. And we felt like there was high time for that. So we went out and we worked really, really hard and we got that movie made. But yes, Tonga Fafita, legendary wrestler and just all around tough guy, but also one of the best people we ever want to meet, has an amazing role in this movie. And also, three Hall of Famers, along with Teddy there is the Lariat, Stan Hansen, the living legend Larry Zbyszko, and Diamond Dallas Page. Dallas has a great role in the movie. His is not one of the main characters that moves through the movie together, but the part he has in the movie is a very impactful part, and honestly, one of my absolute favorite scenes in the entire movie. And if you're a DDP fan, I promise you will not be disappointed. And a lot of people don't know. I mean, Dallas is a professionally trained actor. He went out and spent time in LA for years, and it shows in this. I really believe that. I mean, Dallas came in and he nailed it, and I think the audience gets to see how good of an actor he is, for the camera, not necessarily, just as a performer in the wrestling ring. And of course, one of my closest friends and former tag team partner, Ernest the Cat Miller, comes in and just has an amazing role. His character is called Mac Brown, and he came up with a tagline, the Kung Fu Cowboy. So, and he just comes in and does amazing job. And a lot of times with Ernest, I knew everybody that we handpicked for these roles would come in and they would be prepared and they do a great job. But it's funny with Ernest, he's so laid back at times. Like, there'd be times when we'd get ready to shoot the scene and I'd be like, we still call each other Cat and Glacier. I'd be like, Cat, you good to go with dialogue? You good and everything? And he's like, yeah, I'm good. And sometimes I'm running around trying to get everything, situated behind the scenes, kind of as a producer. And man, I tell you, he's a pro's pro. Every time they said action, boom, he was right there. And he gave not only just a good performance, then there'd be times when I'd say, well, just throw in whatever you think needs to go. And man, he'd give us something. And I'd be like, oh, that something that wasn't on the page that he would give us, which would be amazing. It's just so amazing.
Well, let me ask you, there is in the trailer, there's a shot of Ernest going, man, I can't remember the exact words. Maybe you can, but he basically says, man, pro wrestlers versus aliens. That's like a movie.
Like a monster movie.
It was that planned because behind him, I see Steve or Luther behind him actually cracking a smile like he wasn't expecting that response. Was that an unexpected response?
Yeah, you know what? We shot that scene. It's it's a scene where we're all in this little store and we're trying to get some weapons to fight the aliens. And there's the town, the crazy guy, the conspiracy theory guy in town that everybody thinks is crazy, but who it gets revealed is he actually knows what's going on. He's the one who actually knows the aliens are coming, And so he's telling us the story. And it's funny. I will say, if you notice that, if you go back and watching the thing that when Ernest said, he kept saying, pro wrestling versus aliens, and we would cut, and then finally, but the way he would say it, it still worked so good that like Luther would just like get a natural reaction from Luther every time, and finally, we just said, the director, I said, let's just leave it that way. It sounds more fun that way,
Oh yeah, well, it looks very natural and real.
And it's
just kind of like wrestling, you can blur that line a little bit, and it makes the viewer draw in a little bit more. So I liked it actually. I mean, the fact that I noticed it, so
it's Ernest he just showed up every day. He knocked it out of the park, which I knew he would, and also obviously Luther and I have roles in the film, and Gangrel, David Heath has we actually there's a his character has a very special name in the movie. I'm not going to say it right now, but after the movie comes out, I'll talk about it. But there's a lot of little hidden gems in the movie that I'm really big on those types of things, because I feel like it just adds a lot of heart to the story when you tell people about the film and the making of it and how these things came together. And his character name in the movie has a very special meaning to him. And actually, it was kind of a gift from me and Luther to him to name his character a certain name. After the movie comes out, I'll come back and explain. But Dave showed up once again, hit it out of the park, just over and above what we asked of him, and everybody over delivered, which was just amazing. And
that's a really good thing for you, and especially in the production part, because you got enough on your mind. Having these guys come in and do their job makes your job a lot easier.
Oh yeah.
And Teddy, anything you want to hop in with before? Because I know we're running out of time. I'm looking at the clock. So
no, I was just enjoying listening to Ray there talk about the movie. I can't wait, man. I definitely want to see this. It's got to be real entertaining. A lot of great guys, like you mentioned, Haku, super nice guy, man. I'm unbelievable nice, but he's doing his thing, and let's thank DDP not only for the movie, but for a lot of things that he's done for some of the boys. He's got some of the boys on the right track and brought them out, and saved their lives. Some of them he couldn't help, because if you can't be helped unless you want to help yourself. So, but Dallas, just thank him for everything that he's did for the boys, and now he didn't forget about it. He gave back, and he still does that.
He still is.
Yeah, man. So, congratulations to him, Ernest the Cat, all you guys for just having the opportunity to get involved in this. And you don't ever know, man, this may lead to bigger and better things.
That's what we're planning on, Teddy. I promise you, because it's just I just feel like there's this has been something that all of us who love wrestling, we need more things that make us proud that we love wrestling, and this movie's a fun ride. It doesn't take itself too seriously, except with as I think I mentioned when we talked last week, when we talked about the theme of the movie, the feel, and when people watch the movie, is the thing that we wanted to really show was the beauty of the camaraderie that comes from, a group of guys coming together that have the same passion for what they're doing. And because they love this sport of professional wrestling, the relationships get built, and it becomes like a family, and they look after each other, they care for each other, they love each other like family, and they do anything for each other, even though the six characters that are the main characters are completely different personalities. But it's as they say, like they say, that the strength in numbers, and united we stand, divided we fall. So when these guys are together, they're stronger as a unit than they are individually. And we always say the movie is about, if I had to sum it up in 3 words, camaraderie, friendship, and loyalty. And those words don't normally get associated with professional wrestling as far as telling the story of professional wrestling.
But they should be.
Felt like there's a lot of that there. And my God, if no one was going to do it, then we'll tell that story.
Right. Well,
cool.
I say this, man, you guys did a great job of telling it. So, like I said, man, thanks again. So proud to have you on, and good to see you, man. It's been a minute since I saw you, and you still look great, man.
Good to see you. Thank you. You too. We're holding up pretty darn good, aren't we?
Now, Ray, I know.
You know what we're doing. Got to keep it real, man. That's all.
Sir. Yes, sir.
Ray,
All right.
I know that one of your goals was you wanted to wrestle at least one match every year for the last few years, even through your hip surgery, which I know you still managed to get it in. Is that still something you're doing right now? Are you still working in the ring?
You know what? I actually went up. Now it's been almost a couple months ago. There's no way I thought I'd be getting back in the ring back in February, because I had my second hip surgery December 27th. And, they shot the pilot episode there at the Nightmare Factory to revamp Turnbuckle Championship Wrestling, which Dusty started 20 something years ago. And I was obviously very, very close to Dusty during that time and helped build TCW, which I'm very, very proud of. Dusty, basically, awarded me to be the first ever TCW heavyweight champ, which just, an honor beyond words because of my love and respect for Dusty. But so when the guys asked, and of course, Teal, Cody's sister, was the one that has really kind of taken the reins of this, and of course QT Marshall, at the Nightmare Factory, they asked us to come up, and so we went up and did an 8-man tag match with Scotty Riggs and Luther and QT, and I didn't do a whole lot because obviously I was trying to protect this newly operated on hip. But now the hip is healing good. It's really inspired me to kind of get back in shape. Of course, doing a lot of the DDPY. I think, Mac, that I may have a limited good run left in me here. So we'll see.
Very cool. Very cool.
All right, man.
We're out of time. That's it. I am your host, Mac Davis. That's WWE Hall of Famer, Mr. Teddy Long. And, of course, our special guest this week, Glacier, and the movie, The Unbreakable Bunch. We'll see you again next week.
In a quiet Florida town, life was simple until everything changed.
Did you see that?
As an alien force invades and takes control, a group of unlikely heroes must come together to save the day. They fought epic battles in the ring, and now they're back, joining forces for the ultimate fight of their lives. With every townsperson in danger, these seasoned warriors will have to bring their A-game to defeat the alien menace. In a battle where stakes are higher than ever, it's time to wrestle with destiny.
Pro wrestling versus aliens. Man, that's like a monster movie.